Welcome to Market Madness, the podcast from GiveMeSport, where every day is like deadline day. We are streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and X.
Market Madness is the ultimate football podcast for fans who want to go beyond the headlines and into the stories that shape the transfer market. Each episode will feature high-profile guests, breaking news, features, games, and challenges.
Search at GiveMeSport across social media and feel free to comment. We'll try to read them out, and you can also listen back to the show later on your podcast app of your choice. Links can be found in the show notes. For more info on any of the stories discussed today, head over to GiveMeSport's website.
Now, myself, Olivia Buzaglo, Joel Beya, and Ben Jacobs are back for episode 11. Ben, how are you?
Very well. I'm in Poland, about to see your beloved Chelsea face Legia Warsaw. And, you know, it's lucky I don't open these curtains to my right because it's actually snowing in Warsaw.
I'm actually, for once, and I mean, I'm usually love following Chelsea around Europe, and I can't because of work commitments when we're in Thursday competitions, but I'm quite glad I'm not going to temperatures where it's snowing, to be fair.
700 Chelsea fans have made the trip. 5:45 UK, got to win big. Nico Jackson, Cole Palmer. I think they'll both start.
I'm sorry.
Joel's like, I don't care.
Yeah, Joel literally is like, I don't
off
care.
Arsenal's Champions League win over Real Madrid. Don't even mention the Conference League. His face says it all.
I honestly, talking about 5:45, all these random places. Good luck to you, Liv, But anyway, coming up today, Arsenal's European delight. We have to talk about what we've done in the Champions League this week. We're going to win the Champions League. James Benji from CBS joins us, and I'm sure he agrees with me.
I hope you're wrong, Joel. Anyway, what's next for Manchester City post Kevin De Bruyne after he announced he was leaving the club in the summer? We'll be joined by the Daily Mail's Jack Gaughan.
And friend of the show and Italian football expert Gianni Buttice will be testing our language skills in this week's game. Myself versus Olivia. You laughing at how I said? Are you laughing at how I pronounced his name?
No, you pronounced his name spot on. I'm laughing at me and you being tested in our language skills, to be perfectly honest.
I'm laughing at Benji, though. I'm not going to let that go.
Really?
James
Benji.
Benji.
That's new name. James Benji. We'll call him Benji. James Benji. He is on the show. I'm sure he doesn't. Ben sits down with ex-Premier League star Neil Maupay. Plus, as usual, Ben will be providing the latest breaking news.
Now, let's get into it. This is Market Madness from GiveMeSport.
Right. First thing we do on this show, Ben, is your question challenge. Now, during the show, if you're watching or listening for the first time, we like to give Ben a question. And then at the end of the show, he will hopefully have an answer. We are yet to do an episode where Ben doesn't have an answer. He's pretty good at this. So
everything.
So the question this week, Ben, is we would like you to find the answer to this question. What is the latest on Tyler Dibbling now that Southampton's relegation is confirmed? Which clubs are interested and how much will he really cost? Because obviously a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about that £100 million valuation that Southampton are apparently putting on his head. So that is what our question is today. And I'm actually looking forward to finding out the answer.
Yeah, Chelsea not in that conversation. I can give you a spoiler alert.
Wow.
100 million is the number Southampton wants. Will they get it? I'll find out by the end of the show.
Oh, wow. Straight in the dagger already, in the heart with the dagger. Top story we have to focus on, guys. Let's just get it along. Arsenal's European domination. We're now joined by James Benji.
Benj. And I heard what you called me earlier. That's what you call a dog.
Well, how are you? How are you doing? You okay?
Yeah, I'm very well. I'm still getting over Tuesday. On a purely professional level, I've never seen anything like that covering Arsenal for a decade. And it was quite. I have to say the revelry went long on into the night. It must be said.
Yeah, no. To be honest with you, I'm still carrying on today. If I'm honest with you, I'm still online trolling. I'm talking about loads of things. I've even got a table that says how we might win the Premier League. I'm going to show you after this call.
Can I just say something before we get into a little video? We have a video to play. I think this just shows Arsenal in their level in European competition, because for you guys to be, it's a first leg quarter final. Come on, guys, we're all celebrating wins of the Champions League out here, and you're celebrating that.
When was the last time you beat Real Madrid 3-0? I think
your
you're forgetting the
caliber,
context here.
your caliber in European football just isn't there, is it? It's just
You
not.
haven't beaten Real Madrid 3-0, Liv. That's what it is.
We did actually win at the Bernabeu once, but we went out.
Anyway, we've got a video to show you, James. Mr. Producer Nick, show us what you got.
3-0. Oh my days. Oh my gosh. We're going to win the Champions League. We're going to win the Champions League. We're going to win it.
I'd love to have seen a video of you watching PSG last night and realizing that the best case scenario is there around the corner.
Yeah, no, you know what? I was a little bit nervous watching it, but nothing was taking me off my high horse, if I'm honest with you. But it has to be. Me and my mates were talking. We were just like thinking that has to be probably in my lifetime. That's one of the best performances that I've ever seen Arsenal play. I mean, we did well against Barcelona a few years ago. Well, I say a few years ago, many years ago, but it's just I think that's up there, right?
Oh, this was another level. That Barcelona win was kind of a smash and grab, wasn't it? Arsenal were much worse than Barcelona, and their chances, and Barcelona didn't take theirs. I thought Arsenal were brilliant. The best performance I've seen of the Mikel Arteta era. Even though, I mean, there were chances for Madrid early on, but they all came from Arsenal making mistakes. And when they cut those out after about the 20th minute, Madrid had barely a sniff. I thought Saliba hasn't really got the flowers he deserved because so many other players have been excellent, but he just had Mbappe at arm's length and was outstanding, world class. Probably for me cemented his status as the best centre back in the world. And then Declan Rice, yeah, I mean Joel, you'll know as well. You go to an awful lot of Arsenal games, and every set piece has a bit of a build up, a bit of a crescendo, and it feels like a moment, except when Arsenal have a direct free kick. And I'm pretty certain everyone in the ground was like, all right, well, nothing going to happen here. And I felt, I'm sure you're the same, I could feel this wave moving up the West Stand of people sort of slowly, it dawning on them that he's actually just put that first free kick in. And then the oohs, the ahs of spontaneous applause when they saw the replay. It was phenomenal. And I've come around to the view that was the better free kick. Just because it's the way it, like...
The second one?
Yeah, the way... First. Because of how it comes back off the net.
Oh, wow.
It just sort of does that weird sort of like whoop, off the net.
James, I cannot agree with that. Do you know what I found funny was that everyone was like talking about the set piece coach who was telling him to cross it. Everyone thought he was telling him to whip it around the wall, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, he's a genius!" But obviously, and then I quite like the Declan Rice. I mean, Declan Rice is one of my favorite players. He's one of my favorite players I've ever worked with. I think he's the ultimate professional. I think he's absolutely brilliant. I mean, if he could start doing that for England as well, I would really, really appreciate that if he's England's set piece taker from now on. But that second free kick, I tweeted it as soon as I saw it, is one of the best free kicks I have ever seen in football. And like, for me, it's not quite Lionel Messi against Liverpool, because I think he has to go over the wall. I think that's slightly more difficult to put it in the top corner. But for as long as I've been watching football, and I'm not saying it's the best because I don't think it is the best, but it's definitely up there. And I was watching Real Madrid and I just thought, I think some people were like, well, this is what Real Madrid are like, but they just seem to get it done. But I think when you come up against a good side, listen, I don't think the tie is 100% over just yet, because I think if they get one early goal at Bernabeu, it could get a little bit nervous, but I can't really see you conceding 3 in a game, I don't think. But
set piece, set piece.
Yeah, you actually are. Oh my god, you actually are set piece FC. I mean,
do you know the last team to score three goals against Arsenal?
Must be years ago now, no?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Newcastle, maybe?
Luton Town.
Go on, Luton.
Wow.
Oh, I was there for that. What a game. I remember that game. Yeah.
I think, and Brighton nearly 2 years ago, the last team to beat Arsenal by 3 goals. And I think Madrid looks so vulnerable that Arsenal will even Arsenal with no strikers will score 1. So I mean, I completely agree with you, Olivia. It's the Bernabeu and crazy things happen when Real Madrid are involved. But I mean, 95% chance that Arsenal are through, I would say, which is incredible.
Also, James, when you look at the 2 free kicks, second one top bins, I think was better, but I understand why technique and shape wise. And when you look at it,
I think Mikel Arteta would agree with you as well.
First one stands out, yeah. I mean, his opinion is obviously more important than mine. But what I think stood out for me is, even if you discount the 2 world-class free kicks and a good finish from Mikel Merino as well, Arsenal could and should have had more. You can make a very strong argument that Real are lucky to only be 3-0 down.
I mean, Jude Bellingham did say that, didn't he, James, in his post-match interviews? I mean, obviously, I like Jude Bellingham. I thought he had an okay game, but he even said, being honest, we were lucky that we didn't come away with a bigger deficit. And I think the fact that it sounds ridiculous. The fact that it is only 3 maybe gives that Real Madrid that tiny little slither of hope that they probably wouldn't have had if you'd have taken your chances, like the other chances.
The person who was probably their best player, right, and besides maybe Mbappe threatening a little bit, Camavinga, right?
He's class, isn't he?
He's so good, it's ridiculous. But the fact that he's got a red card and he's not playing the next game, it just gives us...
But Tchouaméni's back. So Tchouaméni was suspended for the first leg, so Camavinga's played. Now Camavinga's suspended for the second leg and Tchouaméni will be back. But that's the difference. Like, their squad is
as well.
Ridiculous. And Ceballos has been like... This is mad. Like, we're talking about Dani Ceballos. Like he's been... I mean, not from what I've seen, but like, people talk about him and he's been brilliant for Real Madrid. So, listen, I think it's been a wicked game, but...
he gets the Isak celebration for me. This guy. Nah.
I mean, just like my final thought on the game, what's really impressed me, I've seen a lot of Real Madrid. I remember them, in that year where they just kept beating every English side impossibly, and every team would do everything right, and Karim Benzema would just magic something up. And that, in England in particular, of late, Madrid have developed this aura where even when you score, you feel like it's just the prelude to them ruining the game for you. And so many teams, when they get that goal, they just want to bunker in. City kind of really did that in the knockout playoff earlier this season, but Arsenal kept going for it. And I thought that was really impressive and spoke so highly to the way that Mikel Arteta had drilled them. And, his message going into this game was not like stay in the tie. It was show this opponent what you are, who you are, and how good you can be. And that's why I think they really kept going for the throat. And everyone's right to say it's not job done yet, but Madrid needs so much of their magic. And I got the sense, sort of milling around, that I don't think they really believe they can do it. Well, they believe, but it's more of a hope than a sort of expectation. And I know anyone that saw Madrid a few years ago knew that 3 goals down, they'd just expect to win 4-3.
Yeah. I am just before we move on and talk Arsenal, sort of like not about this Champions League game, obviously watching PSG last night against Villa. I mean, I still think if you played them in the next round, which is looking likely now, that you'll get chances, Arsenal chances, and that attack's so good, and their defence is a little bit frail at times. So I think that PSG Arsenal game is going to be absolutely unbelievable if that is the Champions League semi-final.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, James, also even more impressive is if they were to win the Champions League, they'll do it with a makeshift striker in Mikel Merino. And we know, regardless of if they do or don't win the Champions League, the job new sporting director Andrea Berta has to do. How much of a statement, how much of a boost, how much of an even pressure reliever would it be to start with that Champions League trophy, given the summer overhaul that is required at Arsenal? And I sense also, given the different remit, because when Mikel Arteta came in, he was probably told from day one, you got 5 years. It's proven to be the case. But I get the impression that Berta's job description says something more like win now, win immediately, or you're going to be in big trouble.
Yeah, Arsenal are in win now mode. Of course, like maybe not win this season. One of my favorite things, I am throwing this out as an idea. If you look at sort of Bukayo Saka's recovery timescale, apply that to Kai Havertz. Late May, maybe, you never know, but that's entirely speculative on my part. Arsenal really are in the mode now where their players are approaching 26, 27, 28, many of them, the key players, and they know that they have their title window open over the next few years. So we'll see that in how Andrea Berta attacks the market. I mean, it's really notable as well that someone like Victor Gyökeres, quite soon after Berta arrived, was really sort of moving up the list of strikers they would look at. We know Isak is the dream target, but it may just be a dream. Gyökeres sort of fits into the timescale of we want to win in the next 3-4 years, and after that we'll rebuild from there. The same as well, really, with someone like Zubimendi. And if you look at maybe the other positions they're going to look to strengthen, they'll kind of try and deepen this roster as much as they can. They want a sort of full 25-man quality roster, so they may well look at a sort of utility fullback, a winger, another midfielder as well, someone like Sverre Ipan, who they've obviously kept those close ties with and that close contact with post him deciding to stay at Rosenborg in January. So, you know, what we're expecting here is a really ambitious, aggressive summer from Arsenal, one where they look to establish themselves as Premier League champions now that they've been Premier League contenders for several years. And pressure's on Berta, but we know he can do that job. And by all accounts, he absolutely aced kind of every step of the recruitment process, and is considered one of the best deal makers in Europe. So it's really exciting times going into the summer as well for Arsenal.
Yeah, James, you mentioned obviously Victor Gyökeres, and obviously everyone knows that Arsenal are going to be after a striker in the summer. Obviously, you mentioned Zubimendi as well, and then bolstering sort of you just basically bolstering every single position that you feel like you need to. Do you think we're going to see midfielders leave if you do bring in someone like Zubimendi, or is it just going to be adding to the squad that you've currently got right now?
I mean, at the moment, there's obviously been no progress in talks with Thomas Partey and Jorginho over contract extensions. So Zubimendi comes in and sort of immediately plugs the gap left by Partey in the starting 11. Jorginho, I think for him, there's a real appeal of going back to Brazil and playing week in, week out. They love him at Arsenal. He is almost like a member of the coaching staff, but I don't think he's quite ready for that. I mean, Olivia, you'll know from Chelsea as well. He's a really useful player, whether he's on the pitch or off the pitch. Yeah. But I think he still feels that he's got something he can do on the pitch. To an extent, when you sort of, if you add a striker and you have Mikel Merino kind of back in that midfield area, that you may find that Arsenal can just sort of cope with 1-6 and Declan Rice is an option at 6, and they've got Merino and Havertz can play at 8. But I would expect them to assess the market and maybe look at a younger player who could plug in behind Zubimendi at 6, but maybe isn't expecting minutes week in, week out. See that comment about Martin Ødegaard? I don't think Martin Ødegaard's getting benched, that's for sure. So valued for what he does, the sort of things you don't see off the ball. But yeah, I really do think this will be an aggressive, assertive summer in the window by Arsenal.
You know, James, I was looking at it this morning, adding up how we can potentially still win the Premier League. So I've got an image that I want us to put on screen at the moment.
Who's allowed Joel to do this, guys? Who's
allowed? I just want everybody to, we can all chime in on this, right? Currently on 62 points, Liverpool on 73. Look, 11 points behind, but there's still hope. All we got to do is win the rest of our games, guys. Like, we can do that, right? All of these games are winnable, right? And it's not like I'm saying Liverpool need to lose all their games. They just got to like win a couple, draw a couple.
Joel, I can
draw to Tottenham.
I was going to say, I can see that a draw to Tottenham and also losing to Chelsea. There is no way in hell that Liverpool are losing to Chelsea. Not
we
to Chelsea.
Don't know that though.
Like, no, I do, Joel. I've watched Chelsea enough this season to know that that's not going to happen.
I'm just
You're being greedy, Joel. You're being greedy because what you don't factor into that is in between those games, if it goes according to plan, you're going to have the 2 Champions League games, and that then recover, then back to Premier League. No chance.
No. I mean, every you know, you can hope, Joel. You can hope. I mean, if you'd have beaten Everton last weekend, that would have been a start, and then you know, it was
different then, though, Liv. It was different then. Now we have ultimate belief. It's changed. God. The whole game's changed now.
Come on, Real Madrid.
You never know. You know.
Anyway, enough of this Arsenal chat. I think I've had enough. James, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, as always. Remember, you can follow James's work across CBS's platforms. And, of course, you can follow him on X as well. He's at James Benge. And I guess, guys, if you do win the Champions League, I will just have to settle for singing There's Only One Club in London with 2 European Cups. How about?
Doesn't really scan that, does it? You guys from Munich.
Don't worry, it does.
I'll see you in Munich in May.
Yeah.
Come on Real Madrid and come on PSG. Anyway, Ben, I think it's time for some breaking news, I think.
Well, forget Arsenal and Champions League. What about Nottingham Forest and qualifying for the Champions League? And if they do, keep an eye on them for Ademola Lookman. Forest have Lookman on their radar. They're plotting an ambitious swoop, but it will likely require Champions League football. Now, Lookman is almost certain to leave Atlanta. And the reason for that is because he's kind of fallen out of the club. He's contracted until 2029. But suitors, and there are several of them, feel that a number around 50 million euros, which is very cheap, might be enough, given it's so tense at the moment between club and player. We know Tottenham have looked in the past, and more recently Aston Villa have been credited with an interest as well. What I can tell you about Villa is that they're still deciding on a number of moving parts across their attacking line. They want to sign Marco Asensio permanently. PSG are open to that. There's no option to buy there. Marcus Rashford, 40 million option to buy. Daniel Mallion's obviously there as well. And if they can fend off certain clubs that maybe have Morgan Rogers on their radar, maybe there's not room for one more. But Lookman and Villa, much like Joao Felix and Villa, could become a possibility. But Forest are serious about Ademola Lookman. And of course, there's interest in Morgan Gibbs-White. So if he departs, they'll need to strengthen. We know also they've looked at Mateus Cunha. I'll have news on him a little bit later in the show, but I don't think Forest are front runners there. And the other club to watch for Ademola Lookman is Juventus. And Juve, by the way, could enter the race for Rasmus Højlund too. They'll certainly be in the market for goals, whether Dusan Vlahovic stays or goes. And then we can just rule out a club for Ademola Lookman as well, and that's PSG. They're not in the race. They were last summer. They signed Kvaratskhelia, and now that position is filled. Lookman is a little bit different to Kvaratskhelia, but PSG want a traditional number 9. They've got their left-sided attacker, and someone as versatile as Lookman is not quite the kind of profile, to my understanding, that PSG are looking for this summer. But keep an eye on Forest and Lookman. If they qualify for the Champions League, that one could gather legs.
That's really interesting to me, because when I look at that particular position, especially at Forest, I think of Hudson-Odoi. Like he's really, fulfilled his role there. He's become the main man. I think that makes that position a little bit tricky, no? Would you not?
It could do, but as I say, you have interest, for example, from Manchester City in a player like Morgan Gibbs-White. And remember, whereas Hudson-Odoi likes to start wide and have the freedom, a player like Morgan Gibbs-White has predominantly been playing in attacking midfield. Ademola Lookman, a central second striker, an advanced 8, a number 10. And he can filter out wide to both sides. So it's that versatility and maybe therefore slightly different kind of profile to Callum Hudson-Odoi. They might compete for the same spot, but there may be a way of them coexisting together.
Interesting stuff. But listen, I want you to bring us up to date with the news coming out of Anfield yesterday. But beforehand, I just want you guys to know that this is Market Madness on GiveMeSport. Okay, so news coming out of Anfield yesterday. Salah and VVD. Oh my gosh, it was like a double swoop. If we didn't win the night before, I would have cared. But Ben, I'll leave the floor to you, please.
By the way, when you say this is Market Madness on GiveMeSport, have you given up on the click?
Oh yeah! Oh my god, I forgot.
Hey, after Tuesday's performance, I gotta go.
I like it. One for each goal.
I'm just trolling Liv today, That's all.
That's great. I'm really, really enjoying this.
Let's talk about Liverpool then. This is not necessarily a big surprise because, as we revealed on GiveMeSport 3 weeks ago now, Liverpool were confident that both Mo Salah and Virgil van Dijk would extend. Each of them have got a 2-year contract on the table, and Liverpool kind of felt that it would take time. With Salah, it's because they have to balance his age and his form now versus the fact there'll be no pay cut. So is the data going to say something different to the sentiment and maybe suggest that across that 2 years, it's not value for money? And Liverpool had to stick to quite a firm position on contract length, not 3 years, 2 years, but Salah is going to stay on pretty much the same package. It's not signed yet, but the expectation is that it will be. And as we broke on Market Madness and across the GiveMeSport platform. Saudi were always pessimistic, at least in the last few months. Michael Emenalo was not working on a deal for Al Hilal, and that was maybe the first clue that Salah was going to stay at Liverpool. And my expectation is that that deal will become formal now in a relatively short time period, because the deal is basically done. There's been the breakthrough and all parties are now just working towards formalization. Same story with Virgil van Dijk. I think he said publicly that there had been progress. And the only real difference in terms of time there is, unlike Salah, where there's a financial consideration, Van Dijk is thinking more about, if he stays at Liverpool, is he going to play regularly? And I think the answer, of course, is going to be yes. And that's partly with a view to the 2026 World Cup. And second of all, who else might come in his position? Because the way that Liverpool work is they try and find the young profile or the new player they need when maybe the heir is still there. So you get continuity, and whoever comes in has a period of time where they're basically playing with the player that they'll eventually replace. A good example of this is Mamardashvili, who will arrive this summer, but Alisson's still there. And as long as he's at the football club, Alisson is likely to start as the number one, but Mamardashvili knows that. So Van Dijk had to understand who's going to come in, what his game time and role at the club might be, also understand Arne Slot, and over time, all parties are now on the same page. So Salah and Van Dijk expected to stay, 2-year contracts for each, and that's likely to be formal in the coming days or weeks.
Man, this is very interesting. That, I mean, obviously, you would have thought though it would be a Kwanzaa Konate kind of like, you know, combination, maybe. I don't know, but you never know, right?
And Arteta's only got a year left, remember? So PSG are monitoring that situation.
Why would you want to leave Liverpool though at this stage? You know, like, don't get me wrong. Like, yes, PSG are an exciting club, and he's French as well, and you know, I hear it. You know, especially if but really and truly, Liverpool, right? And especially if Van Dijk's leaving, he could be the main man.
Yeah, if Van Dijk, I think the partnership is always going to be Van Dijk and Konate. If Van Dijk stays, Konate next to him is just brilliant. But I mean, PSG are not what they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Like, and I know obviously they attracted big names, PSG, but they're so much better without those big names, and they are a way more attractive proposition now to go and play for. The way they play football, the way they gel, just the way they are as a team, that I think you could forgive, you know, Konate if he did want to go, because they are definitely. I mean, for what we don't know what's going to happen in the Champions League, but say they won the Champions League, then what? Then they become an even more attractive proposition. But I think this Virgil van Dijk and Salah news, I think with Trent going, I always believed that those two would stay. And I think the Liverpool fans, if you ask them, 2 out of the 3 isn't bad.
I'm shocked with the Salah one, you know. I thought that was done, and I thought he was just gone, if I'm honest.
To Saudi?
Yeah.
Well,
I just thought
what I was hearing, my trust me, bro, sources were telling me that it wasn't even just Saudi, because, for example, Saudi, he's always going to be able to sit there and collect money whenever he wants. But I thought it was going to be, if there was another attractive proposition in Europe, he would have been happy to explore as well. I'm very surprised, Ben, that you're saying he's staying on the same package. I mean, that to me is a massive sign for Liverpool to say. I don't even think they would have been wrong if they had given him the money, because it's Salah. Like, no one's done what he's done at the football club. But the fact that they've stayed firm with, you know, their beliefs, it means that no one's going to ever be able to come and override the system or the pay structure.
By the way, a trust me, bro source is Romano, because I saw you around the table with him on a Champions League night with all manner of UCL legends.
Trust me, bro sources.
He's feeding me that information. I can tell. No, Romano was one of the first to say that Salah was going to stay at Liverpool. I think you make a good point, but it's really easy when you look at a transfer to say, just pay Salah what he wants, just keep him. Why isn't it easy? But Liverpool run the data as they did when Salah last renewed as well. And they have to look at, is he going to replicate it according to data and be more dispassionate about it next season, the season after? And is that money worth it? Because the last thing that you want is to have a player. I reckon Chelsea had it with Aubameyang in the first window of Clear Lake Bowley, who you bring in and you say, it's worth the fee, it's worth the wage, it's worth the agent fees. And within 6 to 9 months, you're like, yikes, this player is having a steep decline. And nobody wants to predict that with a player like Salah, but you have to run those numbers in that scenario to make sure the investment's worth it.
Ben, I'm so sorry, but you can't compare. I know you were just using it as an example, but that's a bad example. You could not use Aubameyang compare it to what Salah's done. I mean, the thing with Salah, if you had run data 2-3 seasons ago, no one would have told you that he would have had his best season now, playing for Liverpool. I think this is the thing in this data-driven world. We have to use the eye test as well. Sometimes we just have to rely and go, look, man, like, fair enough.
Yeah, but Joel, they did. They genuinely ran the data. Ian Graham is on record, who used to be the head of data at Liverpool, saying for the first renewal, they thought the data would say, don't renew Salah. And the data surprised them. And it said, did renew Salah. So the data isn't a way of going, take the eyes or the passion or the personality out of it. It's just a sense check to make sure that your head and your heart are on the same page.
Right. Sorry, guys. I've got to stop you. As much as I was enjoying that little debate, because we are asking the Daily Mail's Jack Gaughan, what's next for Manchester City post Kevin De Bruyne? I was thinking that you were about to speak, and you go, Joel.
Sorry, Jack. It's me and Liv. We're having an interesting one today. How you doing, Jack? You okay?
I'm all right. How are you?
Oh, mate, I'm having probably one of the best weeks of my life, if I'm honest. Thanks,
yeah.
I really appreciate it. Yeah. But you know what? Look, you're coming on today, and obviously we heard the big news earlier on, end of last week, I would say, about Kevin De Bruyne, going to retire. I mean, I was having back and forth with Rio on our podcast saying, is he the greatest ever midfielder the Premier League has experienced? I mean, that's another debate. But we just
the answer is yes, isn't it?
Well, you know what? Thank you, because you're one of the few people that's agreed with me. I think there's a lot of sentiment towards the Lampard because of the goals he scored, and Steven Gerrard, he could do everything, but it's not Kevin's fault that he's won like 6 Premier League titles, a Champions League, 4 or 5 League Cups. It's ridiculous. I mean, Jack,
you can't. I don't think it's when you're comparing midfielders and obviously what they've won. Like Steven Gerrard didn't win anything, barely. He won one, didn't even win the Premier League. Yet he is considered one of the best ever. He's in my top 3, hands down. He's in my top 3. Yeah. I don't know if he's number 1, but
who's number 1 then?
Oh, you're talking to a Chelsea fan. What's the point in this? Anyway, we're here to talk Manchester City.
But this is the problem with this debate is that you sort of debating with like nostalgia merchants, aren't you?
Literally,
like we all want to hark back to the mid-noughties when I think we were all growing up watching football. So that's sort of that's your like dream period watching the game. So therefore, you sort of always misty-eyed when you're talking about that. But then if you look at like what De Bruyne has done over 10 years, it's just it's astonishing. But it's not like the stats, is it? It's not the numbers. It's just the way he makes you feel when you're watching it.
It's both. Jack, if he was so good, Liv, why did we not see Steven Gerrard do what he was doing in an England shirt? By the way, I'm a big Steven Gerrard fan.
But then you could argue that we haven't seen Kevin De Bruyne, the best of Kevin De Bruyne, in a Belgium shirt.
What are you talking about? They didn't win the competition, but they were getting further than England.
No. Listen, I think Kevin De Bruyne is one of the best midfielders the Premier League has ever seen. I'm not saying he's not. For me, he is one of the best. Hands down, he's one of the best. I just personally don't think he is the best we've ever seen, but I can understand why people would think he's the best we've ever seen.
What makes him better than Frank Lampard then?
Pardon?
What makes Frank Lampard better than him? Sorry.
I mean, obviously, you arguing with a Chelsea fan is difficult because I'm always going to say Frank Lampard, but I don't think we'll ever see what Frank Lampard did again. The amount of goals that man scored from midfield is the most underrated, one of the most underrated things in football. He scored over 200 goals from central midfield. Do you know how ridiculous that is?
Yeah, I mean, it's one.
But anyway, this isn't right. Okay, this isn't about
let's
Frank
put
Lampard.
the KDB versus other players just on ice for a moment. But tell us if you are watching where you rank KDB. We'll come back to that maybe a little bit later. But Jack, let's just start with the backstory here. It sounded like Manchester City have known for some time they weren't going to try and extend Kevin De Bruyne's contract. How did this exit come about? Was City surprised by KDB's post? And was it inevitable in your eyes that he was going to leave at the end of this season?
Yeah, it did feel inevitable, really, just given the way the season's gone. He had big offers last year. I know for a fact there were quite senior people at City sort of March, February last season that thought last season was going to be it, but then he'd spoken to Guardiola and decided to do one more year. They were basically going to see how it went, but I just don't think he's come back from the injuries sort of sprightly enough to be able to play week in, week out in the Premier League, sadly. Which is it is a little bit of a sad end, really, the way that it's finishing. But he's, if you put him into any other league in the world, I think he'd still sort of have a massive impact. I mean, it sort of reminds me of when Gundogan went to Barcelona for a season and was absolutely amazing. And then he came back to the Premier League and it's like, it's a different sport. It's all moving too quickly for him. And I think that's sort of the same kind of things happen with De Bruyne without him going away. Like it just caught up with him a little bit.
Jack, just on De Bruyne, obviously you probably argue and say he's irreplaceable, but do you think City are in a good enough place with what they've got right now, or do you think they're going to look to find someone that's similar to him in terms of the way he plays? It's obviously hard because it's Kevin De Bruyne. What do you think City are going to do about him leaving?
Yeah, I asked Pep about this last week and said, like, of all the legends of the club that they've had leave over the last few years, so you look at like Kompany, Aguero, Fernandinho, David Silva, they've replaced all of them really. But De Bruyne is different in that his actual skill set that he brings to them. My argument to Pep was that elite football doesn't really have that many players like De Bruyne anymore. Where I know there's a big debate about players being overcoached and it all being quite robotic. Like De Bruyne is the antithesis of that. So they can't go like for like because you've not got anyone that sort of is just so like raw in the way that he plays. I think I've written last season and in the last couple of months that Florian Wirtz is someone that they really like at Bayer Leverkusen. Now, whether they're able to do that financially remains to be seen. But he's like the sort of number one that they really like and really want in that sort of like number 10 position in behind Haaland, and they think him and Foden will be able to sort of dovetail together quite nicely. And then obviously there's the links with Gibbs White, who's another sort of ball carrying midfielder, which they've signed a few of those recently, which is they've signed ball carrying midfielders and then not allowed them to ball carry in games, which has been quite interesting to watch. So I think they'll have, I think they will sign a midfielder this summer. It's just sort of like depending on how much money they throw at it and whether their top targets want to join.
Jack, just quickly before we move on, Terence, so you can see, he said, would KDB have been as good in lesser teams, or is he more of a product of Pep's system? I think I know the answer.
It's like every good player in Guardiola's team. Like Foden's a great example. It's like, he's a system player. Like, they're just really good.
No, Phil is a system player. We see it every time he plays for England. He is. But when you look at KDB, what he was doing in Germany, right, that tells you he's not a system player. The way he was smashing records, etc. But go on, Jack. Sorry, I'm very passionate.
Well, just with the Foden thing, it's like this is really tangential, but like with England, I think if you like, I think we'd all agree that probably in the middle area of the pitch, then Bellingham and Foden are probably the two biggest talents that the country's got. Now, Bellingham can do a number of different things and would be absolutely incredible as someone who plays as a sort of more traditional kind of box-to-box midfielder, which would allow Foden to flourish in an area in behind the striker. I think you get the best out of both. And that's where I think they should have looked to have already playing Foden. And that is how you get the best out of him. But yeah, sorry, that is very tangential.
Jack Palmer over Foden, mate. But go on.
Oh,
just
isn't-
coming
I
back
think-
to KDB. Sorry, Liv.
No,
I
it's okay.
think because we sort of told the backstory around the leaving City, and I'm interested to hear your sourcing and knowledge of what's next too. So we've broken on GiveMeSport before that San Diego held initial talks, but now they don't have the discovery rights. Inter Miami do. It's clear there's interest in Saudi Arabia. What's less clear is if De Bruyne wants to go there. There must surely be suitors in Europe that are looking at De Bruyne too. What's your understanding about what's next for KDB?
Yeah, there's been a couple of someone mentioned to me the other day that there could be a couple of big clubs in Europe that are having a look at it. Obviously, as you said, Miami have got the discovery rights, but have got 3 designated players already. So how does that work? Does that mean sort of Jordi Alba goes back to sort of not being a designated player? New York doesn't sound feasible, even though they're part of the City Football Group. And Saudi Arabia, my argument with Saudi Arabia and De Bruyne is like, look at my hair. De Bruyne is even more ginger than me, and I don't think so. He was tempted by Saudi last year, but I think sort of lifestyle-wise, maybe America suits him more. But as you said, Ben, I wouldn't discount a team in Europe, in Spain or Italy at the moment.
It's been a strange season. Obviously, we know that there's potential for Kyle Walker to leave. There's also news on Cambiasso or Udogie. Can you give us a little update on the fullback situation, please?
Yeah, so Cambiasso was sort of the one that they have looked at very strongly. I know his form has sort of dipped slightly at Juventus, but he would be the one that I would think that they'll go for, and that's sort of a long-standing interest. I've got to be honest, the Udogie thing is I'll have to defer to other people's reporting on that. I've not heard Udogie, but the fullback, they'll go for fullback, go for a midfielder. I think they'll get 3 or 4 in. Having spent 175 million quid in January, I think there'll be sort of similar money spent again, and a few going out. It's going to be a really interesting couple of months to see sort of who are the ones that are chosen to leave after what has been a fairly horrendous season in a way that you just don't see. When was the last time you saw a team that good just all drop off at the same time? It's been incredible.
Yeah, it has been. I mean, I've got no doubt City will be probably back fighting for the title next season just because it's Pep Guardiola and it's City. Obviously, with KDB going, you mentioned obviously it's going to be hard to replace. I mean, Omar Marmoush came in and I think he's been pretty good since he joined City. I've really liked him. I like watching him play. Do you almost feel like he's half a KDB replacement? Because I suppose he's come in to fill the role of Julian Alvarez, who was obviously used in replacement of Haaland and KDB when they were both injured. So is that a thing, do you think? Yeah,
I think he was basically, when they signed him, they said that the pitch to him was that you're going to get Alvarez's minutes. And he was quite happy with that. And said, yeah, thanks very much. And you're absolutely right. He plays, fills in for Haaland, but also for De Bruyne. But I mean, there hasn't been that much filling in for De Bruyne this year, really, because he's just not. He wouldn't be in the sort of starting 11, the preferred 11, I don't think, anymore. So you're sort of seeing them transition into a different team, and they've not really found or located exactly what that looks like yet, I don't think. So Marmoush, like, if you watch Marmoush, you'd rather him be on the shoulder of a centre-half, I think, even though he does have a sort of tendency to be offside quite a lot. Like, he does have that killer instinct in behind. So I think long-term, you would want him higher up the pitch than a De Bruyne would play. So therefore, the need to sign, as we said before, not a replacement, but someone to play in that area of the pitch is still massive, I think.
Agreed. He's done very well, though, in my opinion. He started hitting a bit of a scoring streak. I have to ask you, Jack, as well, about the 115 charges against Manchester City, specifically around time frame, because it's been clear for some time that we could have learnt the result as early as Easter. Maybe it will run on until kind of May or even into the off season as well. And it's complicated, isn't it? Because there's the independent panel who will make their ruling. Then the clubs are going to have to digest something in the region of thousands of pages and determine who may or may not appeal. They may be proceeding with an appeal and choose not to make anything public until that's resolved itself as well. But most fans, and this is why I use the word clubs, plural, will be thinking, even a 1 point deduction, and remember, City vociferously deny any guilt, but even a 1 point deduction could be the difference between City getting in that top 5 in Champions League or not. So what are you hearing in terms of where we're at and when we might get clarity on the result of these charges?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that has just sprung to mind on the points deduction argument actually is that there's a cut-off, isn't there, for the in the EFL for teams that go into administration if they get the 10 points. It's got for the 10 points to be added in that season, it's got to be before like the end of March, I think, or something. And then if it's after that point, then it goes in. It sort of carries on into the next season. But I mean, that's assuming sort of guilt, and it's assuming that they get a punishment that heavy. As you said, they sort of vociferously deny all the charges. The time frame. I was smiling when you were asking the question because the time frame's been quite funny because we all thought it was going to be the beginning of March, and like during the international break, I was getting text messages from different people every day going, "I've heard it's today. I've heard," and like I was thinking like one of them's going to be right at some point, and yeah, none of them were. So I've sort of like kind of given up ringing people and asking when it's going to be because clearly nobody knows, and that's okay. Like it's okay for no one to know because it's it's a legal process and it'll be done when it's done. But the sort of the anticipation is going to be before the end of the season. Quite sort of well connected people thought it was going to be in March, and it hasn't been, and it obviously wasn't in March, was it? So we just have to wait and see. But it's going to dominate, absolutely dominate the news cycle for weeks and weeks afterwards, and there are going to be appeals. And someone said to me last week that some of the other clubs are now getting a little bit frosty with the Premier League for like how long it's taking, how much money is being spent on fighting City on a number of different things as well. And it's not just this one Premier League against City anymore. There's sort of other sort of fractions that are developing, which is it's not why any of us watch or love football, and that's the sad thing about it, really.
I think this is the most quiet I've ever heard Liv when talking about charges, which she knows full well that her club will also need to be investigated soon. But anyway, take the floor, Liv. Take the floor.
Oh, thank you very much, Jack. It's been a pleasure to have you on and talk a little bit more about Manchester City. You can follow Jack's work on the Daily Mail's platforms as well as on X. He's at Jack_Gaughan. For more info on any of the stories discussed today, you can head over to the GiveMeSport website. This is Market Madness from GiveMeSport. I think it might be time for a little bit of breaking news, Ben.
Go on, Joel, do your 3 clicks. There we go. So this is an update on an exclusive that we broke a couple of weeks ago regarding Mohamed Kudus. And you may remember, if you're an avid viewer of Market Madness, we broke the news that he's on the radar of Saudi Arabia. And I can now report that there is a special and higher Saudi release clause of £120 million active this summer. So for Premier League clubs, it's £85 million. For anyone outside the Premier League in Europe, it's only £80 million. I say only But when you hear that Saudi number, it's significantly higher. 120 million pounds. And this is interesting because it's one of the first instances where we've seen a Premier League club really protect themselves against the ambitious Saudi market by saying you can't just have the same terms as rival or European clubs. It's got to be much higher. From Saudi's point of view, I will repeat, Al Nassr have Kudos on their list, but they're looking at that rough number of 85 million pounds or 100 million euros. That's the kind of bid they're thinking of, not at 120 million pounds, which is closer to 140 million euros. So Saudi are sort of retaliating here and saying, we're not just going to meet the Saudi clause, we're going to offer good money. And my understanding is at 100 million euros, West Ham will find it very hard to reject that kind of bid. But Kudos isn't the only name that Al Nassr are looking at. We know in the winter market, they tried for Karim Matoma. The Brighton player didn't want the move. Antoine Semenyo for around 75 million is also on the radar of specifically Al Nassr, but some other Saudi clubs as well. And keep an eye on Luis Diaz as well. The feeling from Saudi is that an offer in excess of 80 million pounds might be enough to at least engage and start a conversation. There's not a guarantee that Diaz leaves Liverpool, but they might be open to offers. And Al Nassr, Al Ali, even though they signed Galeno from Porto in the winter market, they still want another left-sided attacker or somebody versatile that can play across their front line, especially because Bobby Firmino could and is expected to depart this summer. And Neom Sports Club too, who are a big project in Saudi and are about to or are likely to get promoted to the Saudi Pro League for next season. They're crystallizing their targets as well. The links with Kevin De Bruyne are a little bit wide of the mark. There's nothing advanced between Neom and Kevin De Bruyne yet, but Luis Diaz also on their radar too. So there's going to be a big amount of Saudi movement, much like in the summer of 2023, and Kudos and possibly Luis Diaz, two players to watch.
Oh man. Listen, for everybody just tuning in now, you've missed our Champions League chat regarding Arsenal. Don't worry, we've got more of it coming. The new Liverpool contracts we've discussed, KDB at Man City, but don't you worry, you can watch the show back on GiveMeSport's YouTube channel later on, or you can listen on the podcast app of your choice by searching Market Madness. But let's move on. After the break, we're heading to Italy for an update on Serie A with our friend of the show, Gianni Buttice. So this is Market Madness from GiveMeSport.
Hey guys, yeah, so good to be discussing the Serie A title race, and it is one of the exciting title races in European football right now. We look at some of the other leagues and they feel like they're wrapped up already. Well, Serie A, it certainly isn't the case. So I've come to Tuscany to talk a little bit about it. This isn't a green screen behind me, I promise. So look, as always is the case with the Serie A title, it's never a foregone conclusion at this point in the season, or it rarely is. Even when we look at the winners in years gone by, in the last 4 years, we've seen Inter, yes, they've won 2 Scudetto, but Napoli have won, AC Milan have won, and this season we look at it, and many would say now it's probably a 2-horse race, and it's 2 top managers going head-to-head. It's Conte's Napoli versus Inzaghi's Inter. A couple of weeks back, you may have said Atalanta are in the mix as well. They're now 10 points adrift in 3rd place, having lost the last 3 games. But when you look at Napoli and you look at Inter, there's very little to split these 2 teams. And maybe the Champions League distraction for Inter could take effect, and Conte will be hoping the fact that Napoli don't have European football and midweek football that they have a slight advantage. But they are 3 points off Inter. Both teams have played 31 games, and Napoli have been drawing a few games of late. They drew at the weekend, as did Inter, it has to be said. But there's very little to split them, as I mentioned, and it is 2 of the best managers in the league. Conte's been there, done it, so has Inzaghi. It does feel like this Inter team, it's an aging team, and maybe this is one of their last opportunities with this team to go and win a Scudetto. I think they'll be looking for a refresh and to bring in some younger players very soon. But it's such a strong squad. They have to be the favourites. They've been there, they've done it. They've got strength in depth. We look at their attacking lineup, And you look at Thuram's had a great season, so has Lautaro. But then you've got players like Arnautovic and Taremi who can chip in with goals. The midfield is full of goals with the likes of Barella. Zielinski, who they bought from Napoli, has been good. And then the wing-backs, they've had a few injury problems with the likes of DiMarco and Dumfries. But even then, players like Carlos Augusto can come in and do so well. Inter, for me, are rightly the favourites. So as we look ahead to the summer, there's always some big transfer speculation coming out of Serie A, not just moves from Serie A to the Premier League or other European leagues, but moves within the league too. And when we look at players like Osimhen, of course, he's owned still by Napoli. He's on loan in Turkey at Galatasaray. Man United, Arsenal, we know, are constantly linked with him, but I think Juventus too. And Juventus are the team still in Serie A with the big pulling power in terms of transfer fees. They've been linked with Ademola Lookman, who, of course, is the current AFCON Player of the Year. He's not had the best of time with his manager, with Gasperini, a public fallout when they were knocked out of the Champions League, and Gasperini criticised Lookman for missing the penalty. So Lookman perhaps on his way, but Gasperini from Atalanta has been so good. He's revolutionised that club. They're now a Champions League team. They've won European medals, and he's been linked heavily with Roma. That'll be really interesting. Ranieri's doing a good job at Roma. And then Vincenzo Italiano at Bologna, who Bologna are really one of the informed teams right now in Serie A. They're in the Champions League spots. They're fourth. Now, Italiano did so well with Fiorentina. He got the Bologna job when Thiago Motta moved to Juve. And now we're seeing Italiano linked with bigger and better teams as well. AC Milan aren't overly happy with Conceição. So as always, the managerial merry-go-round, but with players too. Juventus will look to bring in a big name like a Lookman. AC Milan are looking for a summer refresh and perhaps will offload a couple of big names. Tomori constantly being linked with moves away every window now, it seems. But Theo Hernandez as well, like the French left back, has a big transfer price. It's come down a little bit as he's had a bad season, but it was Como, Cesc Fabregas's Como, that bid 40 million for him in the last window, and they could come back for more. Conte at Napoli is going to of course he's going to demand a big name or two. We know they were linked heavily with Garnacho in the last window. So as always, it will be exciting in Serie A for some big moves. Inter Milan can't stand still either, by the way. So it will be a fun and packed schedule of summer activity, no doubt, for the Italian teams. Okay, guys, so a little bit of fun now. To keep the Italian theme going, I've sent Ben some Italian expressions so he can quiz both Joe and Olivia. So, for example, now you've got your bread wet. Ti sei bagnato il pane. This means you've made things harder for yourself, like making a piece of bread soggy. It's difficult to eat. So, enjoy, Ben. I'm sure this is going to be lots of fun. Enjoy learning some Italian. Ciao, ciao. Arrivederci.
Ciao, Gianni. Arrivederci. Uh-oh. Joel and Liv. Hands on heads. How is the Italian?
My mum is Italian. This is the worst part, is that my mum, she speaks, it's called like Napolitan, which I don't think is actual Italian. It's like a Napoli version of Italian. But I blame her for not talking to me in Italian as a child. So I now don't speak a single word of Italian. So that's great.
Joel?
Pequeno, and I know that's not Italian, so that's the only.
Like, I got what you meant.
Pequeno.
Yeah.
I can only speak Spanish, so I'm not even sure I'm going to know right from wrong here, but we'll make a start. So the way this is going to work, and by the way, I think Gianni needs to come back on, and when we have Fabrizio Romano on next week, he will do the game and he will say the Italian and he will get it right. Because when I read these phrases, I'm either going to butcher them or I'm only going to have to go for the English translations. But the way the game works is we have an initial 4 popular Italian phrases and it's multiple choice, which helps you a little bit. You will each, per question, give a letter, A to D. Doesn't matter who says it first, you get a points tally. Then if it is tied, we have a tiebreaker. So question number 1 is non tutte le ciambelle escono col buco. Good accent, butchered every word. It translates to not all donuts come out with a hole. Not all donuts come out with a hole. So option A is it means you can't judge a book by its cover. B, not everything turns out as planned. C, life is sweeter when shared. Or D, mistakes are forbidden in cooking.
B.
B.
Both of you go for B.
I think that makes the most sense, does it not?
Yeah, exactly. To me,
There's not that much difference, is there, between you can't judge a book by its cover and not everything turns out as planned? But the answer is B. You're 1 for 1.
Yeah.
I should get more of a point because I said it first, but okay.
But we were both thinking, if you saw my facial expressions, clearly there's a point in that, right, Liv?
We're one question in and you're already trying to steal an extra half a point.
Yeah, you know, you've got to find every little way to win.
Chelsea.
Okay, I can't believe you're going to keep this run going. Question number 2. Se com il prezzemolo. You are like parsley. A, you brighten up every room. B, you're constantly gossiping. C, you show up everywhere. D, you're a great cook.
C.
I was going to go C as well, actually.
Livy, you're just basically copying.
Well, is C, or do you want me to different just for the game?
No, first answer and all of that.
Okay. Yeah, well then C.
And it'd be wrong to make you change because unbelievably, C is the correct answer.
I just thought, like, when you're like, and this probably has like no, like, is probably no reason, but like, don't you find that when you actually like chop like herbs like that, they do seem to get absolutely everywhere?
Agreed.
That's what I was thinking. It's like always they're like stuck to my hands, they're on the floor, they're everywhere. I don't know if that's got anything to do with it.
Agreed.
I haven't seen or eaten parsley in about a decade since I was a teenager, so I would have not got that correct. But you're both 2 for 2.
Terence Tibbs thought it was C as well.
Nice. Go on, Terence.
Yeah, feel free to play along. And also feel free to correct any pronunciations for the Italian. I make absolutely no apologies for saying, although I'm trying, I'm useless. And Italian is not a language I've ever spoken. So it is guesswork with the Italian, but it's quite fun to try. Question 3. E come mettere il lupo al guardia della pecore. It's like having the wolf as a shepherd. It's like having the wolf as a shepherd. I think we've got a similar phrase here in English, so you might get this one. A, giving someone too much responsibility. B, putting the wrong person in charge. C, being overly protective. D, taking care of others before yourself.
It's A or B.
Yeah. Can you say them again?
Pick 2.
Can you say them again?
I'll give you them again.
Yeah.
It's like having the wolf as a shepherd. A, giving someone too much responsibility. B, putting the wrong person in charge. C, being overly protective. D, taking care of others before yourself.
B.
The wrong person in charge.
B.
Both correct again.
Come on!
I'm getting a little worried here that we're going to get a 4-4 tie. You're both going to get the tiebreaker. But I suppose given you've been at each other's throats all show, probably best if you share a trophy. So maybe a tie is what we need here for some kind of sanity on Market Madness. Final regular round question. Game's over if one of you gets this right and the other gets it wrong. Otherwise, we're heading towards tiebreaker. Question number 4. Essere come un orso con il mal di denti. Being like a bear with a sore head. Being like a bear with a sore head, or being like Joel Beya when Real Madrid win 4-0 at the Bernabeu. He'll be like a bear with a sore head, should that scenario present itself.
Being
A,
like a bear with a sore head.
Being confused and disorientated. B, acting without thinking. C, being hungry all the time. D, being grumpy and unpleasant.
D.
Say him again.
Being confused and disorientated. Joel has locked in B, acting without thinking. C is being hungry all the time. And D is being grumpy and unpleasant.
D for Delta.
You're going D. Okay, I'll just go different.
Oh, you went D.
Yeah, he went D. I can't even remember them. My memory's so bad. B. I can't even remember what B was, but I'll go B.
Acting without thinking. Are you sure? Is it your final answer?
I mean, yeah, we'll just go with it.
Liv goes with B. Joel goes with D. One of you is correct.
It's
One of
definitely
you
Joel.
has won the game. And the winner is Joel Beya.
We're going to win the Champions League. We're going to win it. I'm telling you, this is my season, Ben. I'm telling you. It's all falling in line. I'm telling you.
That's another great game.
It's
Love
a
that
good
game.
one.
But Romano needs to come back and do it next week because the Italian will be perfect.
Well, I would have said to you, well done, Ben, you did well, but I don't know if you did well or not.
Yeah,
I
me
really don't
neither.
know.
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows, you know? But yeah, man,
Well
that's
done.
it, isn't it? It means that me winning that game means that we're going to beat PSG in the semis, both legs.
No.
We go
Anyway, shall we move on? That was a lovely game. I mean, Ben, you sat down with former Brentford and Brighton striker Neil Maupay. Now, the French player is currently on loan at Marseille from Everton. I don't think he wants to go back if his social media is anything to go by, to be perfectly honest. Now, Joel was disappointed that Ben's interview with Jeremy Aliadier a couple of weeks ago was all in English. Ben, did you try some French this time?
I didn't, sadly.
Oh, should we have a look anyway? Let's have a look.
So, Neil, thanks for joining us. First of all, how are you settling in since moving to Olympique Marseille?
Thank you very much. I'm feeling good. I'm very, very happy to be part of this amazing club down the south of France. So it's been nice so far, but we've got some important games coming up. So the job is not done yet.
There's a lot of reasons to join OM, the history, the fan base, the weather, the prospect of Champions League football. What was it in particular that lured you over to make this move?
There's plenty of reasons why I came here, but I think the first one is Marseille is the biggest club in France, with the most fans and the best atmosphere, I think, even in Europe. So for me, it was really easy to make that decision. And I knew the manager as well, Roberto De Zerbi, from Brighton and from England. So these two reasons made me say yes straight away. Like, I didn't even have to think twice. And for me as well, what was important is to play, to win games and actually play up the table rather than fight for life in a Prem. So that's why I came here.
So what is it about Roberto De Zerbi that gets the best out of your game?
He's a very, very specific manager. Every details from him for him count. That means some things that you might not even notice, but like body shape, he wants you here and not there. He will tell you. And for me as a striker, he played when he was a player, he played as a 10, and he knows exactly what to tell me or what position I should be on the pitch. And then also to have to think when we have the ball, when the ball is there, so what's next before it even happens. So it's like a process. So I know you have the ball over there, you will pass there, and then I have to be in this position with this body shape because the ball's going to come this way. And there's so many times so far this season where it actually happened to me, and I was like, oh, that's crazy, because no one told me that before. And these small details that make you improve and get better.
Was that a surprise in many ways to be this late in your career and suddenly see football from a completely new perspective?
I was a bit surprised, yeah, because before I knew him, I didn't know you could be that specific and you could still improve and understand the game of football in different way. But I think it comes also when you're a manager, you want your team to win, and sometimes you kind of forget how to win. You just like focus on the result. But he's not like that. Obviously, he's desperate to win as well. But he doesn't want to skip steps. So if we want to be there, we have to go from here, there, not straight away. So that's why he's very specific, and I'm enjoying it.
Have you noticed a difference in the Ligue 1 vibe or standard since your first spells in France?
It's hard to say, because when I left the league, I was really young, and it's been 8 years almost. So I can't really remember how was Ligue 1 before. But what I can see now is it's very competitive, and there's a lot of good teams and good players. And I didn't really know what to expect before coming in terms of general level of the league. But I can tell you that it's not easy at all. And I think we can see we've got some good teams up the table, and even the teams fighting for Champions League next season are looking strong. We've got one French team in quarterfinal as well in the Champions League. So it's you know, you don't have to believe what everyone says. It's a tough league to be part of.
What will it mean to you personally if you can be playing in the Champions League next season?
It'd be amazing for me, because it'd be the first time. I played Europa League before, but I'm pretty sure it's nothing compared to Champions League. So it'd be amazing for me and for the club. And like I said, I don't know if you ever had the chance to come down to the Velodrome, but playing the Champions League here in this stadium must be absolutely amazing. So we've got 7 games to go to get there. And that's all I'm focusing on right now.
And do you feel like if your form flourishes at Olympique Marseille, that can put you in the picture for France's 2026 World Cup squad?
I think playing for Marseille, you always get a big attention from the media and from everyone. That's for sure. So if you do perform well here, everyone will see it. But I'm not really thinking about it. Like I said, I don't want to skip step, and I'm trying to. I think it's something hard. It's something like as a footballer or as a person in an everyday life. Sometimes we kind of forget to live the present really, and always think about what's next. So I'm just trying to be as good as I can here right now for the next game coming up. And then I know if I keep that mindset and I keep playing well, then good things will happen for me. But I don't want to overthink too much.
Is it true in terms of international inspirations that in 2022 you made a cheeky call to Scaloni to ask whether or not there was any possibility of Argentina selecting you ahead of the Qatar World Cup?
I don't know where you heard that from, but I will never call or beg a manager to pick me. I mean, if I'm good enough, they will call me, but I'm not. I didn't do that, and but yeah, it's true. I can be part of the Argentina team because of my mom, but that never happened. No.
If we look at some of your influences, I've read before Zinedine Zidane is one of them. Talk to me a little bit about why, and if there's anybody else that stands out that's more a like-for-like profile to how you play and the position that is your predominant one.
Zidane, because my memory from when I was a kid and my first time watching football really and getting into football was the 2006 World Cup. So that's I don't know if you remember, but when Zidane came back in the French squad and he took us all the way to the final, then got a red card, and so that really I watched every game, and he played some games against Brazil where literally there were 22 players on the pitch, but you could really only see one. So that stands out for me, and that's why Zidane. And then in terms of strikers, then a bit after that, when I was like 14 or 15, there was Carlos Tevez, an Argentinian striker, if you remember, played for West Ham, for Man City. And when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, like a lot of people like in my club were saying like, "Oh, you look like him. You look like him." So I started to watch him, and the way he played, I absolutely loved him, and I kind of saw myself in him, like in terms of his desire to win every ball, to score goals, to fight until the end. So yeah, that's the two players I have in my mind.
And you've got another top striker at OM in Mason Greenwood. What's he like to play alongside?
Yeah, he's another top one. I wouldn't say he's a striker, but I think you can put him everywhere on the pitch and he'll do his stuff. He's very talented. He's still young, so we are very lucky to have him here because he's got, I don't know, 15 goals already, and more to come, hopefully.
If we think back to your time in the Premier League, you were prolific for much of it, but it sounded like it was quite a difficult spell at Everton. What went wrong from your perspective there?
I think pretty much everything, to be honest with you. The club wasn't in the right place in terms of management, in terms of manager, because we changed manager that season as well. And I think the way we were playing didn't fit my game. I think sometimes, in football, if you try to play long balls, football crosses with a player like me, that's not my characteristics. So it won't work. And I think sometimes, it just doesn't work out, and it's part of football. You never know before you join a club or manager, but it's part of football.
But of course, you enjoyed your time at Brighton. You were extremely prolific in the Championship at Brentford as well. Talk to me first about Brighton. Are they capable this season of qualifying for the Champions League?
I think so, because they've got very good players and players that have been together for a few seasons now, so they know each other really well, and they have a young manager, exciting manager as well. He looks good, and we can already see so far this season they played some very good games. So I wouldn't be surprised if they make it, and I'd be happy for them because I still have a lot of friends at Brighton.
And how highly do you rate Thomas Frank?
Thomas Frank is another top manager I've been lucky enough to work with. I know him from the Championship when I was a very young player, and we are very close. And in terms of his management with the players and the way he makes us feel, he's absolutely amazing. And the job he's doing at Brentford can't go unnoticed, because he took Brentford, a small club, to first time ever in the Premier League, and he's been like 3 or 4 seasons now. And when you think Premier League now, you think Brentford are part of the Premier League. You don't think Brentford is a Championship club. And so he's done an amazing job, and I'm sure he will have a long career as a manager.
And in England, we don't just enjoy watching you as a footballer. We like your personality as well. For example, your Madders darts celebration. Do you relish your role as a kind of prankster, or at times wind-up merchant? And do you pre-plan things like the Madders darts celebration, or does it just come to you spontaneously?
I think that's just who I am. Football is a game for me, and I'm just having fun. I don't want to sound too deep, but life, you never know what life's gonna be tomorrow. So I'm just doing what goes through my mind and what I want to do, and I just like to having fun. And I don't really plan things. I'm pretty instinctive, and sometimes it just happens on the moment. And You know, I don't really pay attention if people like it or no. I just want to be myself. So that's the main thing for me.
Wow. Really good chat with him there. I miss him, to be fair. Like you mentioned, Ben, he's got a great personality. He's always ready to wind someone up. And yeah, no, honestly, I really do like him. He's really, really nice. Anything? Yes, Liv. We can hear you perfectly whilst being on mute. Perfectly.
Sorry. People
I was going to come in, but I could see your mouth moving, so I was just waiting and waiting and waiting.
People probably enjoyed that more than they enjoy actually hearing my voice. Yeah, Neil Maupay is one of those players that you absolutely love if he's on your team, and you absolutely hate when he's playing against you. Some of the housery we've watched over the years has been absolutely brilliant. So
yeah, it's an interesting one because a lot of people that, as you rightly say, are not fans of the team he's playing for will get quite riled. But then, was he to sign for your club? You'd love it. And it's somewhat similar with Marc Cucurella.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I find him bizarre, but at the same time, I know that when I see him playing for Spain and stuff like that, it's like someone you would love to have in your team. But I wanted to revisit the argument we were having earlier on. We were talking about, is Kevin De Bruyne the best midfielder ever in the Premier League? I mean, me and Liv almost got into a fist fight. Go on.
No, do you know how Jack was saying like it's a nostalgia thing? I actually think it's the complete opposite of that. I think people are saying KDB is the best because he's so clearly in our memory because of what we've watched most recently over the last 10 years, where he has been the best midfielder and an absolute joy to watch. But if you put him up against Lampard and Gerrard and they all played at the same time, I think I can understand why people put him as number one, but for me personally, the thing is, this is so subjective. You're never going to have everyone agree on the same thing. And I prefer Frank Lampard. I probably prefer Steven Gerrard over KDB, but he would probably be but then again, you're also comparing like people like Roy Keane and Patrick Vieira, and they're completely different midfielders to Kevin De Bruyne. So it's so difficult just calling them centre mids when they all had played different roles. They didn't all play in the same position. So I find it hard to pick.
Liv, I would say it depends as well on who you are. If you're a manager, if I'm to take my Arsenal hat off for a second, and believe me, it's hard to do that this week. But if, let's just say I do, right? And I'm a manager, I'll be honest with you, I'm probably going for Frank Lampard because goals wins you games. And Frank didn't only have a lot of goals, but he had a lot of assists as well to go with it.
I love that, Joel, because I think Frank Lampard is so underrated still because of on the ball, people act like he couldn't pass. Have you seen some of his assists?
No, magic.
And he scored 10 goals for 9 consecutive seasons in the Premier League. He popped up with the biggest goals in the biggest games, in the biggest moments for Chelsea. There was not a single final you would go by and you think, oh, Frank Lampard's going to have a poor game. He would step up in every single one. And he was crucial in our Champions League win. I think his penalty in Munich was the most important one at the time. Listen, I'm a Chelsea fan, so my heart is always going to go with Frank Lampard. But I think there's a case for Lampard. I think there's a case for Gerrard. I think there's a case.
I think it depends.
I would agree.
Yeah,
I mean, I just think you make a really good point, which is as soon as you define midfielder, the heart goes towards the more creative goal-scoring ones. But that's kind of why there was this whole debate with Ballon d'Or and Rodri. But ultimately, Rodri wins that Ballon d'Or. So if we're talking about all midfielders, you have to say Kante, Keane, Makelele, Rodri. If we're talking... If we're talking about
seasons, that's the only problem.
If we're talking about like raw talent, pleasing on the eye, then for output, De Bruyne, Lampard. If you're talking about passing, then Paul Scholes. If you're talking about tenacity, then Keane, Vieira, Touré. I think you can make an argument that De Bruyne is competing against peak David Silva, and there's something between those two. Some would include Giggs, Fabregas, peak Mesut Ozil. So it's really, really difficult. But I do think that De Bruyne makes at least my top 3.
Yeah.
Well, that's still high, isn't it? It's still a really, really high number. I mean, we've seen some players, but yeah, can't really argue with that. Ben, am I correct to think that there is breaking news?
Yeah, one more to bring you on Market Madness, and it relates to Matheus Cunha, who we know is expected to leave Wolves this summer. A reminder, there's a release clause of 62.5 million, and several clubs in the winter market were linked, including, for example, Aston Villa. Nottingham Forest are still there for this summer. Bit of a dream target, but my understanding is that Cunha's not necessarily going to pick a club with Champions League football. If he stays in England, and that's the player preference, he wants a big six club. And of course, that's also because it comes with a bigger package. So Forest might be there, but keep an eye on Manchester United. My understanding is that Cunha's agent has flown to the UK and has already made contact with Manchester United over Cunha. And Cunha is open to a move to Old Trafford with or without European football. Then you look at the number and you say it's going to be difficult for Manchester United. But United sources reveal they think there's a bit of flexibility there. We have to be fair to Wolves. 62.5 million is seen by Wolves as the number. They believe it's market value. But United feel there's flexibility, maybe over the structure of a deal to make it more manageable. In other words, it won't be a case of triggering the release clause or nothing. And Manchester United's interest in Cunha is not instead of Liam Delap. Cunha's more versatile. He can play as a striker, behind a striker, and would be well suited maybe to a number 10 role in Ruben Amorim's system. He can go out wide as well. Whereas Liam Delap is also on Manchester United, Chelsea and Newcastle's radar, and is the kind of traditional number 9 in United's case that they are looking for in addition to their interest in Matheus Cunha. And Delap, by the way, has a release clause that now is 40 million. But if Ipswich go down, which is looking likely, it drops to 30 million. And that is why, coupled with his form and 12 Premier League goals, he's very high in the thinking of both Manchester United and Chelsea.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see. And I think if Matheus Cunha gets his move to a big six, that would be very much deserved, because I think he's absolutely brilliant. And I would love Liam Delap for £30 million. I can assure you that is exactly what I want. Okay, well, guys, we've been going for nearly over an hour and a half. So, Ben, it is time to finish the show with your question challenge. To remind listeners and viewers, at the start, we asked Ben what the latest was on Tyler Dibbling now that Southampton's relegation is confirmed. So, Ben, what clubs are interested, and how much will he really cost? Will it be 100 million?
Yeah, so Tyler Dibbling is contracted until 2027. And whenever a player heads into the final 2 years of the contract, you get in a situation where you've either got to renew or consider selling. And with Southampton down, it's going to be very difficult for Southampton to keep Tyler Dibbling. The 100 million number is a club statement. It's grandstanding before the window starts to say to suitors, we want to keep this player in the Championship. But under Ivan Juric, not played as much or had as big an impact as he did under Russell Martin. Maybe a new Southampton manager comes in and Dibbling likes working under him. But the reality is it's going to be extremely tough for Southampton to keep Dibbling. Chelsea are not in the race. Remember, he actually joined Chelsea, spent a brief spell at Cobham and returned to Southampton. And he's quite a shy character, and he didn't really settle in a highly competitive environment. So I don't expect Chelsea to be there. And I don't think that Dibbling would necessarily pick a return to Chelsea, even if they came into that race. Tottenham are leading the race for Dibbling at this stage. The player would be keen to stay in London. It's relatively close for him to get back to his family in Southampton. Spurs and Dibbling is the real one to watch. Newcastle might be there because when Dan Ashworth was in charge, he was very keen on Dibbling. Jason Wilcox at Manchester United and Ashworth during his brief spell at Manchester United both know Dibbling well. Manchester United want to lower their age. They want to invest in homegrown talent. So they could enter the race for Dibbling as well. And Man City is the other club that I'm hearing. But right now, as of early April, Tottenham are the front runners. Tottenham are the most serious. And they believe this 100 million number will be more than halved. The expectation with Spurs is that much like the 40 odd million they paid for James Maddison, dibbling around 40, 45 million with 2 years left on his contract. They think that might be enough to get the deal done, even though Saints at the moment are saying they want over double. And that, of course, is because they want to try and fend off the market in the hope that under new management, Dibbling might change his mind. But as of now, Dibbling is looking for a move away. Spurs are very interested. There's the other Premier League suitors that I've mentioned, and Leipzig is another foreign suitor to watch as well. But I think Dibbling might want to stay quite close to home, and that's why I think that Tottenham may have the advantage.
Ooh, I think it's a big, big summer, isn't it, for Tyler Dibbling and Southampton? Well, guys, that is it. What a show we've had today. You enjoyed it, Joel?
Yeah, mate, it's probably the best show we've ever done on Market Madness.
I'm hoping the one in a couple of weeks won't be as fun for you, but anyway.
He won't turn up if they lose.
Yeah, I know.
You better hope we don't make the final, because I'll be doing this show with shades the whole way.
You know what we're going to do?
I'm not doing it, Joel, mate. If you win the Champions League, I won't be here.
If Arsenal go out, I'm going to get producer Nick to change all the bumpers from Market Madness to Market Sadness.
Yeah.
That's a very good idea. Guys, thank you so much for watching, listening. We hope you're now up to date with the Premier League, Champions League, Serie A. Thank you to all of the guests that came on as well. And thank you guys for tuning into the show. We'll catch you in a couple of weeks' time. As usual, we'll be talking about the biggest football transfer stories with top guests. You can watch us live on YouTube, X, and Facebook. All you have to do is search Give Me Sport, or you can listen back on your podcast app of choice. All you have to do is search Market Madness. For more info on any of the stories we've discussed and so much more, head to GiveMeSport.com. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
We're going to win the Champions League!